Hello, second graders. Welcome to the second video of our math lesson for today. I'm just going to quickly show you some examples and kind of work through some examples for you, just to kind of show you how you can answer certain questions that have you dealing with partitioning of rectangles and of other different shapes. So remember, again, our essential question for this lesson today was, how do you find the total number of same size squares that will cover a rectangle? So that's kind of the question that we're going to be answering today. So the first slide here, it says put several colored tiles together, trace around the shape to draw a two-dimensional shape. Okay, so I unfortunately won't be able to underline like my shape, but if you notice, like I can take some of these different colored but same sized squares and just kind of put them together, kind of like what they did in the video, and make a shape. So I'm just going to quickly play around. Like you can see, I kind of made some stairs here, but if I were to outline this image, it would look a lot different. It would have a lot of different it would have a number of different sides, and so it just kind of gets you used to the fact that you can use tiles to make shapes. You can use tiles to help you discover what shapes might be able to fit inside another shape. So just kind of like a cool activity to do for that. All right, so if we go on to the next one, it says, how many square tiles cover this rectangle? So we can take actually the blue squares over here and just kind of drag them, kind of like what we did in the video as well, and just drag them into position and then see how many we can use. Remember that the squares aren't overlapping each other, they're not on top of each other, they're just side by side, right next to each other, sides together, and just like that. Okay, so it asks me for the number of rows, and it says 2, right? There are 2 rows because we had 1 row, and then we had 2 rows down on the bottom, okay? Number of columns, remember columns go up and down, so we had 1 column here, we have another column here, and then a third column right there, okay? So we had 2 rows, 3 columns, and total square tiles. So that we're just going to count the ones that we used. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we used 6 square tiles. Okay. So now we're going to go on to the next one. And so this one says, use color tiles to cover the rectangle and write how many. Okay, so we got 2 examples here actually. We actually have a square and a rectangle. So let's start with the square. We're going to take some red squares, and we're just going to kind of fill the square in until we can no longer fit any more squares next to each other. Okay, so there we go there. Okay, and so now that square is completely filled in, so now I can answer some of the questions. So number of rows, remember rows go from side to side. So we have 1, 2, so we had 2 rows. And then columns, remember columns go up and down. So we have 1 column and 2 columns. So we have 2 columns there. And then lastly, total square tiles. So remember, it's all the square tiles that we use together to fill this object. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we used 4 square tiles. Okay, and then for this one over here, we can do the same thing. I'm going to use the blue squares this time, just so that we don't get ourselves confused. And I'm, again, just going to take the squares, and I'm going to try and fill in this rectangle as best as I can. Sometimes it's a little hard to get them exactly the way you want them to be. This one looks like I'm going to do pretty well. All right, perfect. So there is our rectangle. So number of rows. Rows go from side to side again, remember. So we had 1 row. Okay? So we had 1 giant row. Now columns, again, are up and down. And you may not be able to notice this, but we actually do have 3 columns. We have a column here, we had a column here, and we have a column here. So we actually had 3 columns in this one. This one was a little tricky. And then lastly, total square tiles. Again, I used 3 squares to cover up this rectangle. 1, 2, 3. So we use 3 square tiles. All right. Moving on to the next slide. So it says use color tiles to cover the rectangle. Write how many. So basically, again, just doing exactly what we did before. So I'll show you this one. There's a few other examples that I can show you as well, but I don't want to spend too much time doing this same thing. So I'm going to just do this one last example, and then we can move on. Okay, but so there we go. I'm putting yellow. This time I'm going to use both colors. I'm going to use the yellow squares for one side, and I'm going to use the blue for the other side, just so that I can show you guys better what a column looks like. Okay, so first of all, it says number of rows. So again, rows go from side to side. So I have 1 row, 2 rows, and 3 rows. Okay, and the number of columns. So my columns are actually the different colors. So I have a column of yellow, and I have a column of blue. Okay, so 1, 2. So I have 2 columns. And then lastly, again, total number of squares. We just count all the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that, my friends, is how it is done. Just like that. Okay? All right, so this one was actually on this one was actually a similar one was on the video, and it's going to be similar on your assessment too. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do this one. So it says Mary started to cover this rectangle with ones blocks. How many ones blocks might cover the whole rectangle? So this one is actually, we're not going to find an exact answer. We're actually just going to estimate. So we're going to, again, look at the same squares, right, that are the exact same size to every single square, and we're just going to see, we're going to estimate how many are going to be over here. So I would think that 1, 2, maybe 3 more columns, and then 1, 2, 3 more rows. So that would be 3, plus another 3 would be 6, plus another would be 9. So I'm going to guess that it's going to take Mary 9 ones blocks to cover. Oh, I'm sorry. So it's the whole rectangle. So I think 9 is going to be here, right? And then I'm going to keep counting the other squares. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So I think Mary's going to need 24 total ones blocks to fill in this rectangle. Now, you might think differently. You might think of another way, and that's totally fine. But due to the circumstances of this lesson, I'm going to just make my estimate. You guys can make an estimate if you want as well. And so when I explain my answer, I'm going to say something like how I knew that there was going to be another 3 rows and 3 columns in that open space. And then I counted all of the squares up. So I'm going to say something like, Mary needed, I'm just going to move this up for you so that way it's a little bit less confusing. So Mary needed 3 rows and 3 columns. Sorry, I forgot how to spell the word columns. There we go. Okay. So Mary needed 3 rows and 3 columns to fill the empty space. And then I can say something like, I then counted 9 squares and added the rest. So just something like that. I mean, it's something that you can kind of explain, a way to explain your answer, why you think it would be 24 blocks or whatever you guys think it would be. Okay, so that's just an example of how you can explain your answer. Okay, and so this one's pretty simple to do. So it says Rick covered a rectangle with square tiles. He made 2 rows and he made 4 columns. How many square tiles did he use? Okay, so what you would have to do is he made 2 rows. So I'm sorry, 1 and 2, right? So you'd have 2 right here and then 4 in each row. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see if I can grab some squares here and see if I can grab some and bring some over here. So let's go cut, and we're going to paste it over here. Then we're going to put a little infinite cloner on it. Okay, so again, 2 rows, right? So we have 1 row there, we have 1 row here, and then 4 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we're going to do the same for down here. 3 and 4. Okay, so now we have our 2 rows and our 4 columns. So now you just count up all the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So our answer would be 8 right there. Okay, nice job. So D would be the answer. All right, and then it looks like our last problem on here says, how do you find the total number of same size squares that will cover a rectangle? So what I want you to do is I want you to talk to anybody who's sitting next to you, whether it could be your parent, your guardian, a friend, a cousin, brother, sister, sibling, anything like that, and just talk about it. You don't have to write anything down, but just talk to that person. How do you find, after the work that we did in the video that you watched, how do you find the total number of same size squares that will cover a rectangle? Talk to that person sitting next to you about how you would do that, how you would answer that question. Okay, just a quick thing before I end this video, just wanted to let you guys know that the assignments are up there, so you can click on each question and then write your answer in the comment section. You don't have to use a piece of paper and take a picture. I know that might be difficult for some of you. So just look at each question, and then in the comments section, make sure you include your name, and then just write your answers to each question. So 1, and then write your answer, and then write number 2 and write your answer, and I'll be able to check all of your comments and see your answers. Okay, thank you so much, guys, and make sure you complete those assignments, and I will see you in our next subject. Thank you so much for a great math class today. Bye.